بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبع هداه. أما بعد. So last week we spoke about, what did we speak about last week? Hamzatul Wasl. There were a few things that we discussed that we need to talk about first before we go on to the new lesson. There was one thing about the word that was mentioned by Brother Hanif. You mentioned the word ittaqa. You were the one? Ittaqu, yeah. Ittaqu. And also we have seen the word i'tuni or ituni in Surah Al-Ahqaf. And I was reviewing all the qira'at, or many of the qira'at, and they all seem to agree on the same thing, right? I was just checking if there's a qira'ah that does it differently, but it seems like all of them do hide or switch or change the hamza into a ya. So instead of saying i'tuni, they would say ituni, right? So the reason behind it, so the word, this is Hamzatul Wasl here. So this Hamza is turned into a ya. So when we start from it, we say ituni. We don't say i'tuni. And of course, if we start from the word before it, then this Hamzatul Wasl is not pronounced. And in which case, we're going to pronounce this Hamza. I think most of you read it correctly. But for a person, let's say, who did not learn Tajweed, right? And he goes and opens the Mus'haf and tries to read this, provided that he knows how to read the alphabet and he knows how to read the words, then he would most likely say i'tuni, right? This is something that I didn't point out last time. So if somebody didn't know about this and he goes and opens the Mus'haf, or maybe he didn't do the homework, he didn't listen to the recording, and he would say i'tuni. All right, there is two things now here. The first thing is that we are changing this Hamza into a ya. The other thing is that we are saying e. We are saying e. Were we supposed to say e or u? E. We were supposed to say u, according to the rule. The rule says we have to look at the third letter. The third letter here has a dhamma, right? And the dhamma makes Hamzatul Wasl have a dhamma. You remember what I wrote last time? A dhamma will give you a dhamma, and a fatha or a kasra will give you a kasra, right? So a line will give you a line, and the waw will give you a waw, or a dhamma will give you a dhamma. So here, we were supposed to have a dhamma. Why do we have a kasra? We have a kasra because this dhamma is not original. Because initially it was supposed to be i'ti, something like this, or iti. So the dhamma is not original. To have a dhamma on Hamzatul Wasl, we have to have an original dhamma, right? And I still have to mail you the document. As I said, the document has only Arabic. I will try to maybe incorporate some English on it, so that you will have the examples and the different cases. And the references also, there's some examples from the Quran. So this is the word that we read last time. The other word, ittaqa, I believe, ittaqu, like the word that Brother Hanif was mentioning, it's basically a similar scenario. As you said last time, the origin of the word is waqa, and the waw is turned into a ta. So, like this one here, ittaqi, so the qaf has a kasra, therefore the hamzat al-wasl will have a kasra, right? Does it make sense, Brother Hanif? Makes sense. What was the other word? Ituni, taqu, and I was pretty sure there was something else. Was there something else? Oh, the word ud'u, right? The word ud'u. So the word ud'u, we were trying to work on a theory, but it didn't work. The word ud'u obviously has a ayn with a dhamma, so it's going to be a dhamma here on hamzat al-wasl. Da'a yad'u. Was there anything else? Yes, Brother Mustafa.
Yeah, you were talking about an example for kasra ghayr asliya, and you said it comes in qira'at fi Sayyid Hafs and Asim. We don't have an example.
Yeah. I forgot about that, yeah. So maybe next time, with the non-original kasra. All right, we'll try to bring an example next time. And this next time is going to be after the holidays, basically. Today is going to be the last class before the break. We have the classroom booked until today, basically. Today is the third, right? The second, so the third is tomorrow. Yeah, so we'll come back, inshallah, after the break, inshallah.
Just one question about
yes.
So what's the special case here? The ayn has a dhamma on it, so it's supposed to be dhamma.
Yeah, Brother Hanif will remind us what was initially your thought about this.
I was thinking like if we have a dhamma and it's followed by waw with a sukoon on it, then it's always the case that we have kasra on hamzatul wasl.
Yeah.
But this word hudu does not satisfy that. Like it satisfies the condition that we have dhamma on ayn, it's followed by waw with a sukoon, but we have actually a dhamma on hamzatul wasl rather than kasra.
Yeah, because you're saying the dhamma here is not the original one?
Yes.
That's why it's supposed to...
Here it's original.
Here it's original.
Yeah, so the rule applies.
The rule applies, yeah. Yes. Here the rule applies. It's like a normal case. Yeah. Yeah, he was just thinking about something that didn't work out when we found this word, or when he found this word. So it didn't work out. Yeah. Yes.
How about id'i?
Id'i, I mean, it has a kasra. I mean, the ayn has a kasra, and the hamzat al-wasl has a kasra. Yes, Brother Hanif. Say again?
Should it be with a dhamma or not?
No. Why would it be with a dhamma? Not necessarily in the Quran. I mean, not necessarily in the Quran. Like the word ituni or iti is found in many verses in the Quran. Right? It's found in many verses in the Quran. It's probably found 8, if not 10 times in the Quran. But it is the only place where you may have an issue, because you're going to be starting the sentence with this word. Right? Anytime you are starting the sentence with Hamzat al-Wasl, or you're starting that word that has Hamzat al-Wasl, then you have to know what to do. If it is in the middle of the sentence, then you will not have an issue. Even if you don't know the rules, you don't know, you don't have the issue because Hamzat al-Wasl is not going to be pronounced. Right? It's going to be dropped.
What was Mustafa mentioned?
Id'i, he said, why is it kasra in id'i?
So we have Hamzatul Wasl and Dal Ain and then
And then yeah.
should there be a kasra or
Well, there is a kasra on the ayn, id'i. So whenever we have a kasra, Hamzat al-Wasl will have a kasra. So I don't see an issue with it. Or are you saying that it's supposed to have something different?
No, I was just considering the udur. We talk about the origin of the word.
Mm. In this case,
It's like, ittaqi, udur.
in this case it's da'a, so it's different than waqa and the other ones. So in this case, it is an original dhamma. In the other ones, it was not an original dhamma. Right?
I think it should be only, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say that, by the way.
Ud'i?
No, Udu.
Here.
No, Id'i. Brother Mustafa was saying
It is supposed to be ud'i?
No. Udu.
Ud'u.
If you want to command someone.
Ud'u.
Not Id'i, I don't know.
Well, I guess in the slang we tend to say these things, right? Id'i. Id'ili. Right? This is how we say it in the slang. So sometimes the slang overlaps with the with the actual thing, right?
But even like, the exaggeration, المبالغة الداعي, for example.
Idda'a, yeah, idda'a. It's like a, yeah.
Just thinking out loud.
All right. Say again?
This is a different word.
It is a different, yeah. He's just given examples, yeah. All right. Shall we move on? Of course, it's always good to check the reference. What is the reference? The reference is basically the recording. Or if you have sheikh with you, then you check with the sheikh on how to read, the ayah, if you don't know. We were checking in most of the recordings, the recordings that are considered reference, they would start from this word. They would stop before it and start from this word in most of the recordings. It's only during Taraweeh recording where people are going faster, so they join this sentence with the one before it. And this is obviously in the middle of the ayah anyways. So they would join it. So for a person who never heard this word being recited, or he only heard it from the recording and now he's trying to join it with the one before it, he may not know how to do it, right? Because as I said, if you are joining, then you will pronounce the hamza which is this one here, not hamzat al-wasl. All right. So today we were supposed to talk about al-waqf and al-ibtida', the rules of stopping and starting. And I know we spoke about this on several occasions, the first of which was in level 1, probably the second or third lesson. I don't have it in front of me, where we spoke about the stop signs. The stop signs, right? Ahkam al-waqf. We spoke about it first there, and we spoke about it on different occasions. Why is this important? If you see how many volumes, how many books have been written about this topic, you will realize that it is very important. Otherwise, they wouldn't have written all these volumes about the waqf and the ibtida', how to stop and how to continue. Let's talk about what are the major issues, or what are the challenges that people have in terms of waqf and ibtida. You have a little bit of background because we spoke about it before, but let's start with this. What are the challenges that you have, you had yourself, or you have seen or heard people having when it comes to the waqf and the ibtida? Yes, Brother Mustafa.
In at a time when the meaning that doesn't change, like stop and begin at appropriate places.
Is that a challenge?
If you don't understand the language.
You mean people stopping in a place where it changes the meaning?
Yeah.
You have an example, or like this is just in general?
There was an example. But
All right, that's fine. Any other? Jannatun Tajri, yeah, this was the example that we gave a while back. Jannatun Tajri, we said a lot of people do it. And you'd be surprised that even like famous reciters would make these kind of mistakes in some of the recordings, Taraweeh recordings especially, where they would say Jannatun Tajri. Jannatun, gardens, running, right? As we know, gardens don't run, right? Even though in paradise everything is possible, but it's not the garden that are running, but it's the water beneath them that is running. Jannatun Tajri, so it's not a very good place to stop here. Even if you are going to come back and fix it, right? So we have two components, of course. We have the stopping. It should be a decent stop. And we have the starting point. You should start from a decent place. So Jannatun Tajri is a good example of a bad stop. A bad stop. Of course, when you read these books of waqf and ibtida, you will find many categories. Many categories. They talk about al-waqf al-tam. Maybe we spoke about it briefly in the past. The complete waqf or stop. It's complete, meaning that the meaning is complete and independent. It doesn't depend on what is before it or after it, such as, for example, the end of a surah. The end of the surah, obviously, it's going to be the meaning is going to be complete. It's going to be independent from what is coming after it, and so on. And they talk about Al-Waqf al-Kafi. Al-Waqf al-Kafi, it is complete, but it's not as complete as the Al-Waqf al-Tam, the complete stop. It is complete as a sentence. If you say this sentence, or this ayah, or this part of an ayah, then people would understand, and the meaning of it is complete. But it's not as complete as the first option. And then you will have or before I tell you the third kind of stops, this waqf al-kafi, when we spoke about the signs, the stop signs, we spoke about the qili, which is the qaf, the lam, and the alif maqsura. This is a sign that tells the reader, the reciter, that stopping here is better. So stopping here is better. And it could, of course, this sign could be different from one mushaf to another. You may find a different sign used in a different masahif. This is the reference here is mushaf of Medina. So when you find this qili, that means it is a waqf kafi. And I will not ask you about these categories. I'm just telling you just a brief description of these terminologies. The third kind is al-waqf al-hasan, where it is okay to stop, provided that you're going to be continuing. And of course, the waqf al-hasan, it could be in the middle of a surah, it could be in the middle of an ayah, or it could be at the end of an ayah. The example that we gave here, and the example that that's obviously popular, and in which scholars have differed in probably many opinions, probably 3 opinions, is the one found in Surah Al-Ma'un. فَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ. Obviously, فَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ is giving a warning to those who pray. And it doesn't make sense that we give a warning to people who pray. And it's because it's related to the ayah that's coming after that. الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنْ صَلَاتِهِمْ سَاهُونَ. Right? Obviously. So the 3 opinions are the ones who say that you shouldn't stop here because obviously the meaning is connected, and those who say that you could stop here. And the 3rd opinion is that you could stop provided that you continue. Right? You shouldn't stop and leave or stop and make ruku', as we said before. And this is the opinion that I go by, that I use myself. But as I said, I mentioned before, if you see somebody doing it differently, it is fine. And they are just following a different opinion. So
the second opinion, it's possible that we stop following Musallin and make ruku'.
No, that's not what I meant. I can't remember the exact opinion, what they meant by it is okay to stop. But the 3rd opinion is the one I use myself. The first opinion is obviously that we shouldn't stop. That's clear. The 3rd opinion is it is okay to stop. Even in the Mus'haf, the Medina Mus'haf, they don't have any stop signs other than the ayah sign after this verse, this ayah, وَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ, which means that they follow the opinion that says it is okay to stop provided you're going to continue. You stop and then continue, whether you are reciting or you are praying. And of course, if you take this opinion, it means that you are considering the stop here a Hasan stop. Right? A Hasan. It is okay to stop. Which is the 3rd category. The 4th category is Al-waqf al-qabih. Al-qabih. And some of them, they also say that there is another category, or maybe they merge it with this one, which is called al-waqf al-ta'assufi, or al-ta'assuf, which is transgressing. You are giving a meaning that it was not intended by the ayah. And we'll see maybe a couple examples. The first one, al-qabih, which is maybe translated as ugly, an ugly stop. For example, a person may say, alhamdu. Instead of saying, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, he would say, alhamdu. Here, the meaning is not complete. If he had said, alhamdulillah, then the meaning would have been good. It could have been Hasan. Even though he may still have to continue the sentence, but the meaning itself is good. Alhamdulillah. But if he says Alhamdu only, then it is not good. If he says Qala and stops here, also it is qabih. Examples of ta'assufi, there is probably many examples. There was the Sheikh, he was Azhari in Vancouver, and he used to give some lectures in the Islamic Center there. And I remember the example. I don't know what was the topic of the talk, but I remember the example clearly that he gave. He said, and it is from the Quran. He said, somebody, for example, praying, and he says, "Inni kafart," right? That I disbelieved. This is what "inni kafart" means. And this is part of an ayah of the Quran, right? It is part of the ayah. He cannot say this and make ruku or stops reciting, because this is not talking about. This is not the person talking, but it is the sentence is referring to the shaitan. In the day of judgment, he would say, "Inni kafartu bima ashraktumuni min qabl," that I disbelieved in what you have been associating me to before. So this is obviously the wrong meaning, and the meaning that is not intended by this. What other examples of, and this is obviously ta'assufi, or ta'assuf. Yeah, obviously, inni ana Allah, it's kind of, or unless it is a complete ayah. I believe in Surah Taha, I can't remember for sure if it is a complete ayah or not. Is it a complete ayah? I think it's the beginning of the ayah. Yeah. So this one may be a little bit debatable because it's the beginning of the ayah. It's the beginning of the ayah. But yes.
I have a quick question. So we are not taking into account the stop sign and non-stop sign. لا تقف. We are not counting this, right?
No. This is part of it. This is part of it.
This is, if we look at all the examples that where لا تقف.
Yeah.
لا.
Yeah.
It's going to be at least ugly, right?
Yeah.
To stop there.
All right.
I'm just trying to clarify here. Are we counting those?
Yes and no. Yes and no. I tell you why. Okay. In some ayat, they would put a la sign, which is no. That means you shouldn't stop.
Yeah.
And we said that it's one of the strongest stop signs. But anywhere else, it's an unlimited possibilities. Basically, it's an unlimited possibilities of being able to make it ugly, or make ta'assuf basically. So because of that, they are not going to put la in. Right? You understand the point. They are not going to put la in after every word, right? It's going to be just too much. So it's like an unlimited possibility. So here, basically, a person will have to either understand the meaning of what he is reciting, or rely on the recording of a good reference. Wherever the Shaykh stops, I was listening earlier to one very nice recording of Shaykh Husari, one ayah that I was gonna. It has nothing to do with the topic, but I was just trying to see where is he going to stop. It was very nice, but he stopped in a place where I didn't expect him to stop, because I thought he's going to read it with one breath, because I sometimes do that. I sometimes read that particular ayah with like a single breath. The ayah is at the end of Surah An-Nisa, where it says لَتُبْلَوُنَّ فِي أَمْوَالِكُمْ وَأَنفُسِكُمْ, to the end of the ayah. So he did stop at the end of وَالَّذِينَ أَشْرَكُوا أَذًا كَثِيرًا. وَالَّذِينَ أَشْرَكُوا, he stopped here and then he went back. So your reference, or your sheikh, if you are studying under a sheikh, he will tell you, studying under a sheikh meaning that you are reciting the whole Quran under one person, or much of the Quran under one person. He would tell you where to stop and where you shouldn't stop. And sometimes the students would write on their Quran where the Shaykh said I should stop and where he said he shouldn't. And these stops that they are writing down, sometimes they may differ on the copy that they have in front of them. So they will have to manually write on it where to stop and where you shouldn't stop. So I was saying that if I don't understand the meaning, or I'm not sure of the meaning, I go back to the reference and see where did they stop. Of course, one sheikh may stop in one spot and the other one may stop in a different spot, but as long as I'm following the reference, then I'm safe. But if I start stopping and continuing from any which way or any place, then most likely I'm going to fall into the problem. Right? So we spoke about the waylun lil musallin example, and the ta'assufi, the transgression, and also one thing that I mentioned before, and I know this may be useful to many of us, especially those who may not understand the language, or they may not understand the meaning of the words. That one of the students I had before, he said, if a person goes back to a wow, and I just remembered another issue now about the wow. But he said if a person goes back to a wow, then it is safe to start from there. And I found that the theory holds. I mean, so far, it holds, because the wow usually starts most likely it's going to start a complete sentence. Right? If you go back to a wow. And I mentioned last time that if a word has a wow before it, you cannot divide them, right? And I always tell people, especially in Arabic, when you're typing, there's no space between the wow and the word, and you should never put a space between the wow and the word, because what happens when you are typing, if automatically, let's say in Microsoft Word, the next word, the word that's after the wow, is dropped to the next line, then if the wow is not with it, then it is a problem. You cannot end the sentence with the wow, right? So if there is no space, then if that word is dropped to the next line, then the wow will drop with it. So there's no spaces between the wow and the word, or between the word and the comma, or the stop sign, or the stop. The full stop, the dot. So you remember this about the wow, right? Some of you remember this? I think it's a good tip to give to somebody who is new to Tajweed, right? If you are teaching somebody who is new, it's a good thing to give this to. It's like a gift, free gift. There was something that I'm going to mention now, which maybe related a little bit to the topic of waqf and ibtida'. Of course, it is related to knowing the meaning of the words, and also the waqf and ibtida' is also related to knowing the meanings. So the first thing that I tell people all the time is never stop in the middle of a word. This is a no-no. If you know that you are running out of breath, try at least to finish that word. Right? This is otherwise it's a big problem, and you hear it sometimes in the adhan. So a person will try to give adhan, and he's trying to give a long adhan. Right? It is a sunnah to make the adhan long, but then if you are not able to say to extend that word that long, then you either shouldn't be making the adhan in the first place, or make it short because you have a short breath. You cannot cut the word and continue from there, right? You just can't. So that's one thing to remember. The other thing that I was about to mention is that the tone that we are giving to these words. And maybe we'll conclude with this, the tone. What do I mean by the tone? When you are asking a question, the question has a question tone, right? Yeah. Is that window open? This is like a question tone. So there are tones that we use, even in the Quran. I knew this brother who used to memorize the Quran, and who was a friend of Sheikh Shuraim from Al-Haram. One day he called him, I was there with him, and he called him. He said, "Yo, it's a big deal, right? Shuraim is calling you. It's a big deal." He said, and I think he liked Sheikh Shuraim very much. He was very popular then. He's not as popular maybe today. He said Shuraim recites as if he's explaining the Quran. How is he explaining the Quran? With the tone. Sheikh Mustafa, who used to come to Vancouver, he disagreed with the particular reciter, but he said, "This is how we do it," and then he started reciting. He said, "If you want to read it properly and to put the correct tone in the correct sentence, then this is how it should be done. And he gave me like a demonstration. So there is particular tones that we put in depending on what the meaning is.
This is what they call maqamat.
Not necessarily maqamat. Not necessarily maqamat. Of course, some maqamat, what they call maqamat, of course, some of them are not suitable for some meaning. Let's say a simple example is for a person to be reciting ayat verses that talks about hellfire, Jahannam. He shouldn't be putting a tone that's a happy tone, right? It just doesn't make sense. So the tone here should be either neutral or sad. Neutral or sad. Of course, this is probably advanced, right? So the tone shouldn't be like happy. Nobody should be happy, talking about Jahannam, right? So this is what I'm talking about. And the story that I sometimes tell people when I talk about this topic of putting the right tone to the words is a story that was told to me by a friend. He said he was in England and he barely knew English. He knew little English. So he said, and it's a real story, he said a car stopped beside me and he understood that this man in the car is trying to get directions, right? And I would assume that this is an international sign. When you do this, what does it mean, brother? Go straight, right? Why are you laughing? Does it remind you of something? It's probably international. Is it international? Everyone understood? When I'm given directions, if I do this, that means straight. But the words that he used were not in sync with the sign. He did this. So the car is here, and he's looking at him and pointing to the directions, and he's telling him, go away, and smiling. And smiling. It just doesn't make sense. So the guy said, what? He said, go away. Nicely. Right? So the tone, probably the man in the car understood that the person shouldn't have used those words. Probably didn't know English, right? So imagine now if we are putting a tone while reciting a sentence in the Quran that gives you this story, that is completely contradicting the words, right? The tone may contradict the words. And this is probably the perfect example for it, is that you are saying something, but you are meaning something different, completely different, probably the opposite, while smiling, right? So this was, as I said, the topic of Al-waqf and Al-ibtidāء is a huge topic. It is a huge topic, and it has a lot of details. For us, or for somebody who is a beginner, especially if you are teaching somebody who is a beginner, you start with the basics. Right? The basics are the stop signs. We have to learn to respect the stop sign, and then major issues. Like the major stop signs, or a person may stop in a place where the meaning is not complete, or the meaning is distorted, or the meaning is wrong, or contradicting the meaning, or giving the wrong meaning, then it should be corrected. So the safest, and I don't know how to emphasize it more than this, the safest of all is to listen to the reference. The reference as listed in your paper that I emailed to you, Sheikh Mahmoud Khalil al-Husari, Sheikh al-Manshawi. Those are people of the past who already died. Alhamdulillah, they left like a good quality recording. Those are the reference, not the Taraweeh recording of the famous reciters of today. So when you listen to the reference, you're not only listening to the tajweed, the tanween, or the noon sakina and those kind of things. You are also listening to where they stop. And if they stopped, where did they start from? Did they start from the word after it, or did they go back? If they went back, where did they go back to? Right? The only issue here, when you are listening to the reference, the only issue that I can see or I remember is that a person may not have enough breath sometimes when the reciter is reading a long ayah and he's not stopping, and I may not have enough breath to do the same thing. That's the only issue. Otherwise, if he stopped, even if I don't know why did he stop there, if I stop there like he stopped, then I'm safe. Nobody can come to me and say, why did you stop there? I stopped there because my sheikh stopped there. That's it. That's good enough. Right? Because this is the Quran, how the Quran was transmitted. It's from one person to another. So if you say that I stopped there because my sheikh stopped there, because his sheikh stopped there, and so on, then it is the safest. Right? And of course, I mean, knowing the meanings of the of the Quran, of the ayat, gives a person the flexibility, and also it gives you the freedom to, even if you don't remember what the reference says, you can deal with it, right? Knowing the rules also, you know, if you stop here and you continue from this word, you will know what to do, and so on. All right, any questions before we recite? Last time we recited from Surah Al-Ahqaf. Maybe today we'll recite from Surah Taha. A little bit from Surah Taha, see how far we can go, inshallah. And Brother Faraz, he knows he's silent. You know you are a silent participant. And the brothers, welcome to the class, inshallah. You can continue coming, inshallah, as I mentioned. Any questions before we recite from Surah Taha? All right. I was just checking if the surah is, I assumed right away that it is a Makki surah. And sometimes you can tell from the, you can tell, how can you tell if it's a Makkiya or Madaniyah?
Sometimes, usually the Makkiyah, the ayats are short.
Yes.
And talks about al-akhirah, nar, jannah.
All right. Yeah. Even if you don't know the meaning, if the ayat are short, you know it's Makkiyah usually. It is obviously because the Quraysh, the disbelievers, they didn't want to listen to this, and they were even putting their fingers in their ears so that they don't listen to it. So the scholars were saying these ayat are so short that by the time they put their fingers in their ears, they would have heard an ayah or two, right? Or maybe 3 ayat. And this is a good example of it. Like the ayahs are kind of short, right? It's not like in some other surahs where the ayah is like half a page or a quarter of a page, right? All right. Sometimes we read the same thing over and over, but today let's read. Let's continue reading. Like we can start from Brother. Let's start from Brother Abu Yahya. You are the last one on the list. We're going to start from the bottom today.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم طه ما أنزلنا عليك القرآن لتشقى إلا تذكرة لمن يخشى تنزيلا ممن خلق الأرض والسماوات العلى الرحمن على العرش استوى
The word Yeah, why did you repeat it? Yeah. So the ra is what? Strong?
Strong.
What's the proof?
The ra has a sukoon and fatha.
Yeah, you agree with him? Everyone? All right. Show us.
الرحمن على العرش استوى.
It's better.
الرحمن على العرش استوى له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وما بينهما وما تحت الثرى.
جزاك الله خير. يحيى.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم طه.
You want to continue from where he left off? Ayah number 7. Yeah.
وإن تجهر بالقول فإنه يعلم السر وأخفى
السر.
السر وأخفى الله لا إله إلا هو له الأسماء الحسنى.
له الأسماء. How long is the mad in the word al-asma'?
4 or 5.
What is it called?
متصل.
Muttasal, do you agree with it? Or we forgot about the mad? All right, make it longer. Yeah, since you know what it is.
له الأسماء الحسنى وهل أتاك حديث موسى إذ رأى نارا فقال لأهلهم كثوا إني أنست نارا
Okay, repeat from إذ رأى from the beginning. Yeah.
إذ رأى نارا فقال لأهلهم كثوا إني أنست نارا.
All right. The word, like you read it, anastu, does it have a mad? The word anastu, like you read it, anastu. So how are we supposed to say it? Anastu. So if the hamza is on top of the alif, then it's just a hamza. But if the hamza is before the alif, then it is a mad. But you have to remember this. I wrote it down once on the board, I remember. Yes. Yeah, it could be an example. Yeah. So the hamza could be used, or the alif could be used as a placeholder for the hamza, or it could be a mad after the hamza. So in this case, the hamza is on the floor, I was going to say. It's on the line. And after it, there's alif. That means it's a mad. Anastu. All right, continue from there. Inni anastu. Inni. لعلي
آتيكم منها بقبس أو أجد على النار هدى.
على النار.
هدى.
All right, جزاك الله خير. Brother Sajjad. Continue, yeah, from where he left off. فلما. Yeah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم فلما آتاها نودي.
All right, say it again.
فلما آتاها نودي.
So is it آتاها?
فلما أتاها نودي موسى إني إنك بالوادي
إنك إنك
إنك بالوادي المقدس طوى.
The word that you read with the mad at the beginning, فلما, you said آتا, right, instead of أتا. The difference, this is for the benefit of all, and this shows how the mad will modify the meaning from one word to another. So when you say آتا, that means he gave or he provided. And when you say أتا, that means he came. A completely different word. So we have to make sure we are not given like a med where there is no med, or we're given no med where there is a med, right? We have to restrict. Jazakallah khair. Continue.
وأنا اخترتك فاستمع لما يوحى
إنني
أنا الله لا إله إلا أنا فاعبدني.
Now we're talking about the stops, and you remember. So the ayah is short enough, so let's try to like read it in one breath if possible.
إنني أنا الله لا إله إلا أنا فاعبدني. إنني أنا الله لا إله إلا أنا فاعبدني وأقيم الصلوات لذكري.
وأقم الصلاة
وأقيم الصلاة للذكر.
وأقم الصلاة
وأقيم الصلاة للذكر.
وأقم الصلاة لذكري.
وأقيم الصلاة للذكر.
No, there's no shadda on the dal. You are making a shadda on the dal. وأقيم.
وأقيم الصلاة لذكري.
That's better. Jazakallah khair. Jazakallah khair. Thank you, Brother Sajjad. Jazakallah khair. Good enough. Brother Mustafa.
إن الساعة آتية أكاد أخفيها لتجزى كل نفس بما تسعى فلا يصدنك عنها من لا يؤمن بها واتبع هواه فتردى وما تلك بيمينك يا موسى قال هي عصاي أتوكأ عليها وأهش بها على غنمي ولي فيها مآرب أخرى قال ألقها يا موسى فألقاها فإذا هي حية تسعى قال خذها ولا تخف سنعيدها سيرتها الأولى.
جزاك الله خير. Brother Muhammad.
قال واضمم يدك إلى جناحك تخرج بيضاء من غير سوء آية أخرى.
All right. The word واضمم, if we don't start from the waw, how do we say it? Why?
Because the third letter has a original dhamma.
All right. What about the word bayda and the word su? What kind of mad is that?
Bayda is muttasil. Su is also muttasil.
So the muttasil is two haraka, right?
No.
That's what you did. All right. Let's try to make them long then.
واضمم يدك إلى جناحك تخرج بيضاء من غير سوء آية أخرى لنريك من آياتنا الكبرى اذهب إلى فرعون إنه طغى قال رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي واجعل لي وزيرا من أهلي هارون أخي أشدد به أزري وأشركه في أمري.
Right. Jazakallah khair. You see how many Hamzat al-Wasl we have in this?
I was going to ask a question here. So if we connect Harun Akhi, which should be Azr.
هارون أخي اشدد. هارون أخي اشدد. أخي اشدد. أخي اشدد. جزاك الله خير. Brother Hanif.
كي نسبحك كثيرا ونذكرك كثيرا إنك كنت بنا بصيرا قال قد أوتيت سؤلك يا موسى ولقد مننا عليك مرة أخرى إذ أوحينا إلى أمك ما يوحى أن اقذفيه في التابوت فاقذفيه في اليم فليلقه اليم بالساحل
فليلقي. Repeat from فليلقي.
فليلقه
That's better.
اليم بالساحل يأخذه عدو لي وعدو له وألقيت عليك محبة مني ولتصنع على عيني.
وألقيت عليك. Repeat from.
وألقيت عليك محبة مني ولتصنع على عيني.
All right, Jazakallah khair. Just make sure you read it slowly when there is two ayns coming one after another.
على عيني.
تصنع تصنع. Jazakallah khair. Brother Bassam.
إذ تمشي أختك فتقول هل أدلكم على من يكفله فرجعناك إلى أمك كي تقر عينها ولا تحزن وقتلت نفسا فنجيناك من الغم وفتناك فتونا فلبثت سنين في أهل مدين ثم جئت على قدر يا موسى واصطنعتك لنفسي اذهب أنت وأخوك بآياتي ولا تنيا في ذكري ولا تنيا في ذكري
ولا في مد.
في مد طبيعي.
Where?
At the end.
At the end. All right. Do you agree with him? Which? That's a good question. Which? Well, he mentioned the end that where he didn't make the mad. He didn't mention the ones that he did. So ولا تنيا
في ذكري. You want me to make it more longer? تنيا.
The last one, yeah, you didn't make a mad there.
Okay.
Yeah.
ولا تنيا في ذكري.
It's better.
اذهبا إلى فرعون إنه طغى فقولا له قولا لينا لعله يذكر أو يخشى.
جزاك الله خير. Well, regarding the tones, like now when I stopped you, if somebody hears you, he thinks that you are still not finished yet, right?
Yeah.
Because he didn't know you're going to be stopped. So this is also a type of tones, right? You are telling the listener that I'm not done yet. There is still something coming. So if let's say you are reading like this and you stop like this and you say Allahu Akbar, then you will leave the listener or the people behind you. For example, like it's not done yet, right? There's something missing. So the tone also like is telling something with the message. It's telling the listener that I'm not done. There's something coming. Wait, right? This just reminded me of one aspect of the tone. Jazakallah khair. Brother Ahmed Haji Musa. تفضل.
قال ربنا إننا نخاف أن
All right, the word قال, like you started, the first word you started with, what kind of mad do we have in this word?
مد طبيعي.
Where?
قال.
All right. Do you agree with him? We have two mads, Brother Hanif is saying, and that's the correct opinion. Because if there was only one mad, it means that one person is saying, one person, singular. But here, because we already talked about Harun, right? So there's Musa and there's Harun. So both of them are saying. So instead of saying, if I say قال ربنا, that means I am saying, one person is saying قال ربنا. But here it says قال ربنا. This is the difference. It is telling you that there are two people saying this, not one and not more than two. It's exactly two people who are saying, and that's the importance again of the mad. All right?
قال ربنا إننا نخاف أن يفرض علينا أو أن يطغى قال لا تخافا إنني معكما أسمع وأرى فأتياه فقولا إنا رسولا ربك فأرسل معنا بني إسرائيل.
What kind of mad is in the word Israel?
Israel, so that's mad muttasil.
So how long is the mad al-muttasil?
4 and 5.
All right. How long did you make it?
2.
All right. All right. Make it 4 then, or 5.
معنا بني إسرائيل.
فأرسل معنا
معنا بني إسرائيل ولا تعذبهم قد جئناك بآية من ربك والسلام على من اتبع الهدى إنا قد أوحي إلينا أن العذاب على من كذب وتولى.
The word والسلام على من اتبع الهدى. If you go back a little bit,
yes.
You see it? اتبع. This word, if we start from it, how do we say it?
So that's اتبع because it has a fatha, so you have to make it.
What is it that has a fatha?
The ba.
There's only fathas in this word.
Yes.
Yeah. So which one? The ba has a fatha. So what do we have to do?
So the hamzatul wasl becomes kasra.
All right. Do you agree with him? You don't agree? You don't agree. So what were we supposed to do?
I think the fatha is on the second tab of the shadda. The first one has sukun, the second one has fatha.
All right. So you're going like technical. You're going technical on this. I think it's.
It wouldn't make a difference here. It's still the same rule because the fatha fatha.
Yeah, all the letters have fatha. I believe that we should look at the ba, unless somebody disagrees here. What do you think, Brother Hanif?
You might be like in the word taqu.
All right. All right. It's good enough. Jazakallah khair, Brother Hassan, Brother Ahmed. And lastly, Brother Ahmed.
Where did you stop?
قال فمن ربكما يا موسى. You start from here.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. قال فمن ربكما يا موسى قال ربنا الذي أعطى كل شيء خلقه ثم هدى قال فما بال القرون الأولى قال علمها عند ربي في كتاب لا يضل ربي ولا ينسى الذي جعل لكم الأرض مهدا وسلك لكم فيها سبلا وأنزل من السماء ماء فأخرجنا به أزواجا من نبات شتى كلوا وارعوا أنعامكم إن في ذلك لآيات لأولي النهى منها خلقناكم وفيها نعيدكم ومنها نخرجكم تارة أخرى.
جزاك الله خير. ولقد أريناه آياتنا كلها فكذب وأبى قال أجئتنا لتخرجنا من أرضنا بسحرك يا موسى فلنأتينك بسحر مثله فاجعل بيننا وبينك موعدا لا نخلفه نحن ولا أنت مكانا سوى قال موعدكم يوم الزينة وأن يحشر الناس ضحى فتولى فرعون فجمع كيده ثم أتى قال لهم موسى ويلكم لا تفتروا على الله كذبا فيسحتكم بعذاب وقد خاب من افترى. All right, any questions before we close? All right, inshallah, we'll let you know through email when we're going to be starting, inshallah. It's going to be in January, so we'll let you know, inshallah. جزاكم الله خير. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك. أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت. أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.